Welcome to the IREL podcast. Are you sick and tired of real estate gurus pitching their next free construction deal, only to find out years later they were completely wrong? Worried the next overseas conference you spend thousands to attend will only be used to sell overpriced lots in deserted developments? Join thousands of other international real estate seekers who are looking for their place in paradise without the sales pitch. Straight from your host, Taylor White.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Replace Myself episode of the IREL podcast. I am your host, Taylor White. I am truly excited to sit down and speak with Jonas from Replace Myself, which specializes in training real estate professionals in hiring Philippines-based virtual assistants to help run their real estate business. Right now from John, you will learn why an extremely devoted husband and father created Replace Myself, and how any real estate related professional can incorporate its training into their businesses. Gives us the overall concept of hiring real estate related virtual assistants and why the Philippines is such an attractive location. Reveals that by setting up specific systems, you can put your real estate related business on virtual autopilot. Provides case studies on real estate professionals his companies have trained. Gives us specific tasks real estate insiders use VAs for, and then how much it will cost, and much more. And don't forget, if you are listening to this podcast and want to grab John's contact details, links on watching John's completely free webinar, or any other show notes, head on over to irelpodcast.com/replace myself. That's irelpodcast.com/replace myself. In case you can't tell, I'm excited. Let's get John on the phone. Hey, John, it's Taylor White. I'm excited to have you on the IREL podcast today, straight from Salt Lake City, Utah. So we can get to know you personally. Tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, I live in Utah, and I love it here. I have a wife and 5 kids. My oldest is 11. My youngest is 3 months old, and it's amazing. I love having kids. I like to golf. I love to play hockey. I work from home. I've worked from home for about 8 or 9 years now, and it's been awesome. Being in Utah, I am a Mormon, so that's something people often want to know.
And so we can get a better idea of you professionally, give us your brief resume leading up to creating several awesome jobs, including Replace Myself, OnlineJobs.ph, Track Labor, and I'm sure many, many others.
I graduated from college in 2003, and I had a job out of college for 8 months. And my only goal during that time was to quit my job. I'm a terrible employee. I hated working for someone else. And it wasn't that I didn't like my job. I actually liked what I was doing. I just didn't like the no incentive part of it. To me, if it didn't matter if I did well or if I did crappy, I was still going to get paid the same amount. And that really drives me nuts. And so I was a terrible employee. My only goal was to quit my job. And so I was always tinkering with stuff on the side, trying to start a business on the side. And after about 8 months, I was making a little bit of money on the internet. And so I quit my job and took a risk. And I didn't have any real debts at the time, so it wasn't that big of a risk. So I quit. I started making a little bit of money, and what I was doing stopped working within a year. And so I just kind of evolved, and I started doing other things and started learning other ways of marketing online and copywriting and driving traffic and the whole thing. So all of the products that you mentioned, the things that I've done that most people know me for, I was talking with the owner of backcountry.com, and they're amazingly huge, the largest online retailer of outdoor gear. And he and I were doing some similar things. He was doing it as a side project, and I was doing it as my main business. And he said to me, John, when you're ready to start outsourcing some of this stuff, make sure you go to the Philippines with it. And to me, that was a big shocker. And he said, in India, when you tell them something and they say yes, that means, yes, I heard something come out of your mouth. It does not mean, yes, I understood what you said.
Absolutely.
And that was, he gave me a reference where I could hire someone in the Philippines. And that was kind of where the whole outsourcing thing started for me. And I've created other products over the years, but those are the ones that you mentioned, Replace Myself and Online Jobs, are the ones that most people know me for.
Absolutely. And then, John, before we dig deep into this, can you give us the general overall concept of offshoring or a VA or kind of the whole idea in general?
Yeah. So, most real estate professionals understand that they need an assistant. And what an assistant means is different to a lot of people. And there's a whole bunch of different ways of sending work overseas.
Right.
You can do it through a company. You hire a company and say, I want this task done. You guys deal with it. You figure it out. You're an expert, whatever it is. And, those companies, they'll assign that task to someone in the company or another person in the company. And the next time you go back to them, they'll assign it to someone else. And so you kind of never know what you're going to get. If it's going to be even close to what you want, you can't really train them because you're going to get a different person every time. On the other hand, if you get lucky with it, you can get stuff done without needing to do anything. And that's kind of what, like Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Workweek talked about Ask Sunday. And that's
absolutely.
That's kind of what he was working off of, was a company that you send them stuff and they have different people that can do it, maybe. Another way of kind of sending tasks is to hire a freelancer. People often do this with their websites. You'll hire a contract worker, build my website for me. And they'll build your website, and being it's your first time building a website, you think that once it's done. And then a month later you realize, I need some updates. Oh, crap, that person's gone. And now I have to go through the entire process of finding someone else to deal with my website. And it's a valid way of outsourcing. And oftentimes people will go to Odesk or Elance. I've seen a lot of real estate professionals do this. And it works. It over time, it's just difficult. So if you hire an assistant through there, you know that person is working for 4 or 5 or 6 other people, and at some point that person's going to become unavailable to you because they're just too busy working for other people. But that's a good way to start. If you've never done anything, give that a try. What I do is hire full-time people in the Philippines to work for me. So they make between $250 and $700 a month full-time, and they work only for me. And they can be very talented programmers, designers, webmasters, to unskilled people but who speak perfect English. And I can have them do anything I want them to do. So in terms of like outsourcing in general, my experience is when someone hires a full-time person to work with you as an assistant, it just frees up so many things. It frees up your time. It frees up your mental capacity to do more work just because you have someone else to do things that you don't want to do. And that's their only job. And if they're not busy for 4 hours, it's not that big of a deal. They're only making $1.80 an hour. And so it really is liberating to kind of take that route down outsourcing. Does that explain kind of what you asked?
Yeah, of course. And I just kind of wanted to touch on something really quick before we move on. Why the Philippines and then not some other spots like India or Pakistan or Vietnam?
That's a really, really good question. I mean, what I heard from the owner of backcountry.com was my initial introduction to it. And, in India, when they say yes, that means yes, I heard something come out of your mouth. Well, what I've learned since is there's some really, really significant cultural barriers with a lot of cultures, India being one of them, where they're not allowed to say no to you. Culturally, they cannot. And so if you ask them something, how is it going? Yes. Is this going to be done on time? Yes. They can't say no. The Philippines is different. And then there are a whole bunch of different cultural things that exist in the Philippines that are really kind of interesting. Number one, English is a primary language there. It's not like everyone learns English in school. School is taught in English. So like they learn Filipino in English. They learn math in English. And that's not always the case, but most often that's the case, that English is a primary language. I was in the Philippines. I've only been there once. But I was in a hotel lobby and heard 2 people at the front desk arguing, and they were arguing in English. I was very surprised. Street signs are in English, billboards are in English, so very often. So I mean that's a really big deal, that the communication is never ever an issue with the Philippines. Their infrastructure is pretty good. So everybody you meet there will have a computer and internet access at home, so they can work from home, which means you don't have to go through a big service to find them, where they mark them up to, $1,500 a month, and then you pay them $1,500 a month, and they pay that worker $400 a month. That's how I got started, and it just felt kind of yucky to me.
Right.
They're in general, they're very honest. Obviously not everyone there is, but as you start working with them, you'll find out they really want to make you happy, and they don't just want to get a paycheck. They want to do a good job in order to get that paycheck. And that is culturally, that is very different. They're very hardworking. They're very pleasing by nature. They're not entrepreneurial. They don't want to steal your ideas. They don't want to steal your business. They don't want to steal your website. They don't want to steal your domain. They just want a job because they're not entrepreneurial. They want a stable paycheck they can take home and support their families. And in the Philippines, full-time work is so heavily sought after because it's a very third world country, and there is very little full-time work, full-time, long-term, permanent work. Most jobs in the Philippines are temporary. Someone leaves their house, travels on a 14-hour boat ride to go to somewhere else to work for 6 months at a job, which is 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And then in 6 months, they have to go back home and find another job. And that I don't know why that's how they do it there, but there's so much of it that when you give them a full-time job staying at home, it's absolutely a dream. And they will, and obviously not everyone, and not everyone's going to have the same experience, but they will try and do so much to try and make you happy so that they can keep their job. So there's a whole slew of really amazing things, cultural things that exist in the Philippines that most people kind of haven't figured out yet. And that's why we still hear mostly about India in outsourcing.
Hey, John, let's start to deep dive into this just a little bit more, as this is a podcast that features property investors, solar real estate agents, brokers of large agencies, real estate developers, and then, of course, we have the listeners interested in hearing from these people. So talk to us more about how real estate professionals can benefit hiring a dedicated virtual real estate assistant.
So one of the amazing things about the Philippines is kind of this combination of what exists in their culture. The fact that they speak English, I have a girl that makes phone calls to U.S. customers, and if you got a phone call from her, you would never know that she wasn't in the U.S. That's how good her English is.
Right.
You would probably know that she wasn't born and raised here because there is a slight accent. But beyond that, she's intelligent, and I can tell her, hey, we want to talk with these 4 things about customers. Talk with them about it and find out their problems and find out and give them solutions to their problems. And she does a good job of it. So in terms of a real estate professional, you can hire someone to schedule appointments. You can hire someone to call. I met someone recently who had been calling banks on short sales and negotiating with them.
Oh, wow.
The realtor brand is in the Philippines. They have realtors there. They're very familiar with the way real estate works in the U.S. And so, I mean, they're intelligent. They're very capable of speaking on the phone. So what we've done is we bought an international Skype account. So it costs us, I think, $10 or $20 a month. She can make, I don't even know how many phone calls, tons of phone calls internationally for very cheap. We upgraded her internet so that her internet was capable of handling the voice, but it's so cheap to have someone doing this, and then she's just competent and capable, and then I don't have to pay $16 an hour through a call center with someone who, doesn't really care about this because they're not connected to my company. This girl is connected to my company. Her family's livelihood depends on her doing a good job, and so she cares. So for a real estate professional, well, that's kind of one side of it. I have people that work for me. We monitor notice of default lists. We monitor trustee sales. And I have people in the Philippines that are monitoring those things for me. They watch the trustee sales. They gather data for me. They look at notice of default lists and do specific things with them. I know people that have Filipino virtual assistants contacting expired listings. I know people who use their Filipino assistants as transactional assistants, where they're doing transaction processing with them. And with all of these things, you have to train someone. In the Philippines, they're not good at, you say, hey, I want you to call banks and negotiate short sales. They can't do it. You have to train them on how to do it. But then once you train them and work through them with it a couple times, then they get really good at it. So like transaction processing, you can teach them how to do it. And teaching is easy once you understand some of the tools that exist. you teach them how to do it, then you check their work, and you do it with them the first couple of times, and you say, you know what, this was done really well, and this wasn't so good. But over time, you get this person who can all of a sudden take care of all of your transaction processing, or they can handle posting listings of your houses online. They can handle creating a virtual tour of a property you're selling. They can do all those things. You just take the pictures and send them to them, and then you don't have to deal with it. And it can really free you up.
One thing I'd like to add is it's very systems-based. So if you have down good systems for things that you need to do, and you can provide them a system and do a Skype call with them or some kind of video call and show them the system, they're fantastic at that.
Yeah, so like social media, for example. I have a girl that posts on my personal Facebook account, and she's better at it than I am. I don't really like it, but it's something that I know that I need to be doing. And so like managing a lot of real estate professionals, managing your sphere of influence. You should be getting 7 to 12 touches on a person every year. Well, are you getting that? Are you sending them birthday cards? Well, a Filipino assistant can do that pretty easily for you. Or are you posting personalized messages? Are you messaging people in Facebook? Or are you creating helpful posts that people are going to like? So that's the kind of stuff inside of Facebook that once they have an idea and they know, I need to be posting 3 times a day, and here are the types of things we want to post, they can do that, and it works really well.
So John, the world's a big place, of course, and then we're talking about hiring VAs located in the Philippines, which for many people is thousands of miles away. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, where do I even begin? So John, you have several companies that kind of all tie in. Kind of better explain those to us.
So we got started with replacemyself.com. It's all about how I replaced myself in what I do. So just so people know listening to this, I work about 17 hours a week. I've worked about 17 hours a week for about the last 7 years because I have these Filipino virtual assistants, and most of my time spent is managing them. So Replace Myself came about because I had so many people asking me, how are you doing this? How are you hiring these people? How do you find them? How do you manage them? How do you deal with this? What can they do for you? And so at replacemyself.com, I do webinars where I teach it. It's about an hour and a half long, and I teach the entire process of what they can do for you. Some of the amazing experiences of them building businesses for me that, all I had to do was give them the direction and they did all the work. Or how do you specific cultural traits that happen that you have to deal with, and how do you deal with those things, the problem, because every culture has problem traits. So that's what Replace Myself started as, this training to teach people how to do it, and it's all free. Then we added to Replace Myself kind of the missing piece of so many people won't hire someone because they know that they have to train that person, and I cannot overemphasize the need to train people in the Philippines. It has so many different effects, more than just getting them to do the task right. So I realized that I had created all kinds of trainings over the years that we could provide to people. And so we started creating internet marketing trainings, Facebook training, article marketing training, how to build a website, how to do SEO. So we have trainings for all of these things inside of Replace Myself. And I think we have about 24 of them. About a year ago, I went to a very good friend of mine who is he's a 7-figure realtor / investor. And so he does really well buying and selling houses and listings and short sales and all kinds of stuff. And I paid him very well to create real estate training modules so that these trainings are designed to be given to your Filipino workers so that when you hire someone, you don't have to create the training for them.
Oh, wow, that's huge.
Yeah, because that's been my biggest burden over the years is if I hire someone, I know that I have to now spend time training that person. And so in an attempt to try and make it easier for people to hire, because this changed my life. It completely changed my life. It completely changed my business, the way I work. It changed my family. It changed my income. I wanted to have so many other people have the same experience. And so that was a really big barrier, was having this training to give to that Filipino worker. And so that's what we've created. So that's what Replace Myself is. It's the learning for you on how to do it correctly, and then it's the training that you can give to your Filipino workers so that you don't have to create the training.
So John, just to clarify, I'm sorry to cut in. If someone is a real estate agent, you already have things in place. They sign up with you, and you have training in place. They can simply hire a VA assistant and then say, VA assistant, here's your training.
That's right. So yeah, I mean, we have like, here's how you can do prospecting on Craigslist. Here's how you can do notice of default prospecting. Here's how you can do social media marketing. Here's how you can manage a sphere of influence. There's all kinds of stuff like that that this agent friend of mine created for us. He said these are the things that will put money into a realtor's pocket, and that's what he created training for the Filipinos on. Yeah, so they're training for the person you hire. Then the other thing that we have is we own onlinejobs.ph, and this was kind of a evolution of what we were doing, where we were trying to hire people from other websites, and the best one that we had found at the time shut itself down because the owners are crazy. I cannot say nice words about them.
Well, then don't say anything, John.
That's right. So we own onlinejobs.ph, which is the largest job board for online jobs in the Philippines that exists. So it's onlinejobs.ph. It's a Philippines website. Everything's in English. You go on there. There's over 85,000 Filipino resumes of people looking for work. You can search specifically in the real estate categories, trying to find people with skills that you want, and you will find people with just absolutely amazing skill sets. So it's very easy to find someone. And then we're not charging commissions. We don't mark salaries up. What they're asking for is the amount that you're going to pay them, and that's the amount that they're going to get. I mean, you'll find that salaries are between $200 and $700 a month for full-time work. So, you can hire a full-time assistant for $300 a month, and that person works 40 hours a week for you. It's pretty affordable.
So then, John, can you talk to us about some of the day-to-day basics? Maybe better explain how we're going to pay, how we're going to speak with them, how we know if they're even going to work, kind of those basic things.
Yes. Okay. So let me start kind of at the beginning. In interviewing them and in trying to hire them, ask them lots of questions. The more questions you ask them, the better feel you'll get for who they really are and their skill level, how it really is. It's hard to judge someone when they're 7,000 miles away and all you're seeing is what they wrote online, So ask them questions. Ask them questions about where they're from. Ask them questions about their family. Ask them questions about growing up. Ask them questions about their experience. Ask random questions that will just get them typing. I don't talk to them on the phone if I can avoid it because they are scared. This is one of the major cultural things that you need to help them get over as you do this. And again, at replacemyself.com in that webinar, I talk about this, but if you're hiring them for a phone position, definitely talk to them on the phone before you hire them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt. But otherwise, if you're hiring a webmaster, you don't need to talk to them on the phone. Talk to them through, instant message them through Skype or through Google Talk, or just email them. Most of the time, I just email my people. I have 14 people that work for me full time in the Philippines. I pay my people through payments.ph. It's very simple. You can use a credit card or you can hook your bank account. It's cheaper if you hook your bank account up to it. And it's super simple. You send them money and they get the money, and very easy. I require them to send me a daily email every single day telling me what they did today. And I found that is super, super important. It holds them accountable for what they're doing. It also lets me kind of not micromanage them because I know that I'm going to get an email with a summary of their task, and I can look at it and say, okay, here's something else that I want to do. Here's some feedback. Here's some training, whatever it is. And then I can go on to working on, the $300 an hour tasks instead of the $8 an hour tasks, which is what they're doing for me.
Right.
So that daily email is super, super important. One of the big, big things that you'll find is that Filipinos feel unworthy. Culturally, they feel like they're not going to do a good enough job for you. They're very scared about kind of letting you down or disappointing you, and they don't want to do that. And so when they get stuck on something, like if you give them a task that they don't know how to do, if you give them a task that they are afraid that they're not going to do it right, rather than saying, hey, I don't know what to do here, they would rather just disappear because they're so scared about confronting you and letting you down. So when they disappear, when you haven't heard from them and they're not responding to you about something or not responding to you at all, is when you need to go and seek out and say, hey, I know something is wrong. Because very often, this is not how most Western cultures work, where if you don't understand something, you go back to the person and say, hey, I don't understand. In the Philippines, they don't do that. At least not initially, not until they trust you. Once they trust you, they will. So in the beginning, what you'll need to do is say, hey, I know you're stuck on something. What are you stuck on? What can I help you with? What are you scared about? What don't you understand? And very often what we find is people think, oh, they're just lazy. Oh, they don't really want the job. Oh, they suck. Those are the kind of reactions that usually we find from people. And then we talk to the Filipino workers and find, oh, that's not the case at all. They really did want the job. They were just scared. They didn't trust that you wouldn't yell at them. They didn't trust that you wouldn't berate them. And so then they don't want to trust you because they don't want to, it's very important that you're nice to them. It's a very important cultural trait in the Philippines. So let me think. What else of day-to-day? Oh, day-to-day management. Use Jing. JingProject.com. It is screen capture, screen recording software. I use this every single day to communicate with my people. It's super simple. It's free. It'll allow you to capture an image of your screen and you can show them exactly what you want, or it'll let you capture a video of your screen and you can then talk your way through whatever you want to teach them or to give them feedback about. So that's another really good tip.
Actually, John, if you don't mind, can I chime in about money? You touched on it just a little bit, and I know there's going to be different stages. If it's a general VA, if they're specific, if they're going to be making phone calls. Can you kind of briefly talk about the money aspect, how much you might pay per hour, per week, per month, et cetera?
Yeah, so I don't hire anybody hourly. I always hire them full-time salaried. And I do that, one, because it's easier for me. Two, because I want them to feel secure in that they have a job, in that they're not going to get fired if they do something wrong. Where hourly, hourly always feels like you are temporary. And I don't want them to feel temporary. I want them to feel responsibility, and I want them to feel like they're part of something. So I always pay full-time monthly wage. It's always between $200 and $700 a month. So I'll just kind of give you some ideas of people I have working for me.
Yeah, please.
I have a guy that does just kind of general whatever I want. He makes $250 a month. His English isn't perfect. He's not that skilled, but he can do a lot of different things, just different stuff that I want. I have numerous people that speak good English who make between $350, $450, $400, $550, just kind of depending on how long they've been with me and how good they are, because, I've had some of these people for 7 years, and so I've given them lots of raises. And those people have gone from not knowing anything to being able to build a website, to doing SEO, to doing other online marketing, posting on my Facebook page, writing articles for me, writing personal blog posts. They don't answer my personal email, but they do answer customer support email. So there's a lot of things that those people will do for me. I'm trying to give you other specific examples. I have numerous programmers that work for me, and they make between $500 and $700 a month, and they're all very good technical people. So I don't have to deal with web hosting. I don't have to deal with servers. I don't have to deal with updates, or if I want, for example, we wanted some software that would monitor trustee sales. So I had one of my programmers write that software. They would gather all kinds of different data and it puts it together so we can spend a lot less time dealing with it. I have a good designer who does logo design or web page design. He doesn't do the web page work, but he does the design layout stuff, and then we pass it off to one of the other webmasters to do stuff. So all of these people. So for example, if you're going to look for someone to speak English to make phone calls, you're looking between $350 to $500 a month for a full-time worker. If you're looking for a webmaster, you're looking around the same, $350 to $500. If you're looking for a general virtual assistant, someone you can just kind of give tasks to, which very often this is the person that I hire. As I look to hire someone, I'm looking for someone who's intelligent rather than someone who is skilled. Because I know that someone intelligent, I can teach them things that I want them to do, and they can learn new things and do them well, rather than someone who is skilled and may not do things the way that I want them done. So I'll look for someone who's intelligent, who makes $250 a month, and then I'll teach them and teach them and teach them because I know it's a long-term position. I expect that person to work for me basically forever. And so the more I can teach them, the better off both of us are going to be from it. What other people? A social media SEO person, someone who can do Facebook and can kind of do some SEO. You're looking about $250, $300, $400 a month for that.
If you don't mind, I wanted to hit you up with just one last question, and then we're going to let you go. Do you mind going into maybe one or two case studies?
I knew a guy in Pasadena who he had his virtual assistant doing some of the similar things that I've been doing. He had them calling expired listings and asking them if they wanted to list their house. He had them following up on notice of default and I think he was sending them emails or he was sending them postcards. He was sending them something and just generating leads for him to get listings that way. I know that my friend who created the trainings has used VAs. He hired them to write some software for him. He has had them following up with some of his short sale negotiating that he was doing. I mean, the girl that he hired was absolutely amazing, and her phone skills were incredible, and the knowledge that she had about, I mean, some of the language that she used I remember when he sent me an email, some of the language she used was stuff that a lot of realtors wouldn't even know, and she was that intelligent.
Fantastic, John. I've really enjoyed our talk today. Unfortunately, though, it's time for us to say goodbye. Share with us some easy ways to get a hold of you, any parting advice you might want to share, and then let's say goodbye.
I'm pretty accessible via email. If you go to any of the websites, you can go to my blog, you can search my name, you'll find me at johnjonas.com, you'll find me at jonasblog.com. If you, on Replace Myself or Online Jobs, if you use the contact link, and it needs to get to me eventually, it'll get to me. So contacting me via email is definitely the best way. You can contact me on Facebook or Twitter, but you're not going to get me. You're going to get one of my VAs. So parting advice, I remember for myself when I decided I just needed to take the leap and see if I could make this work, because what I was doing before just was not where I wanted to be in life. It wasn't where I wanted to be in business, and I just needed a change. And so my advice would be give it a shot and hire someone and see if you can make this work. And, you know, obviously I've provided a lot of resources to try and help you be more successful with it. But if you don't want to go through those resources, if you don't want to spend an hour and a half watching the free webinar, that's fine. But hire someone. You know, give it a shot and see if it changes your life. See if it gets you an hour or 6 or 13 hours back every week because you have someone else doing some stuff that you're currently doing. So what was your third question?
How about where can people watch that webinar?
ReplaceMyself.com. It's right on the homepage and it's free.
Okay, awesome, John. I have really enjoyed this conversation straight from Salt Lake City, Utah to our earbuds, and I hope we can catch up again in 3 to 6 months.
No problem. Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to do it.
I want to thank John once again for breaking down how real estate professionals can best hire, train, and work with real estate assistants based in the Philippines. If you are listening to this podcast and want to grab John's contact details, links on watching the Replace Myself free webinar, or any other show notes, head on over to irelpodcast.com/replace myself. Regardless of where you live, and regardless of what niche in the real estate industry you might be in, I encourage everyone to check out John's completely free webinar. Whether you are a real estate agent in Belize, a property investor in Florida, or land banking in New Zealand, it starts to open up your eyes and your mind to the possibilities when you better leverage your time and money. Head on over to irelpodcast.com/replace myself for more information.
You have been listening to the IREL Podcast with Taylor White. Be sure to hit up irelpodcast.com for more. That's irelpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.